You know, Jesus had an interesting way and moving through the world and changing all the labels that people want to put on stuff. Jesus would go to the things that many people will label good, and he would say, no, that's bad. And then he would go to other things that people would label as bad, and he would go, no, that's good. And he did that a lot, especially when it came to the religious establishment. On one occasion, Jesus told this story. It's found in Matthew 25. He said, the kingdom of God is like a man going on a long journey. And he called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents of money, and to another 1 talent of money, each according to his ability. And then this man went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Well, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. God always settles accounts. And the man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you've entrusted me with 5, and see, I have gained you 5 more. His master said, good job, good and faithful servant. And the man who had the 2 talents also came and said, Master, you entrusted me with 2, and here's 2 more. And his master said, well done, good and faithful servant. And then the man who received the 1 talent came and said, oh, I knew you were a hard man. And so I was afraid, and I went out and I hid your talent in the ground. And see, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. Take his 1 talent and give it to the man who has 10. Jesus is making one really big point here. And we might be able to put the point this way. The point is that the good and faithful servants of God are people of action. They seize opportunity. They use the resources entrusted to them, and they take risks in order to be as fruitful as possible in the work of God. Those are the good and the faithful servants of God. Those who are not people of action, Jesus did not label as good and faithful. In fact, according to his terminology, if you're not people of action, then as a servant of God, you would be called lazy and wicked. Ouch! Say ouch. Ouch. It was like, Jesus, I thought you were supposed to be loving. Why the harsh terminology? For people who talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. For people who know the stop, but they're not people of action. Why the harsh terminology, Jesus? And could it possibly be because Jesus knows that if we're not going to be people of action, we're going to take his movement and turn it into just another institutional religion. And Jesus hates that. We've taken about 7 or 8 weeks or so, and we've talked about the Jesus movement. We've been on an archaeological dig in the sacred scriptures in order to understand what the original movement of Jesus looked like and felt like and acted like. And we have done so not simply because we want to illumine our past, but we want to shed light on our future. We want to make sure that we do not allow our practice of Christianity to erode into an institutional religion, which is always hypocritical and impotent. We want to embrace the spirit of a revolution that was started by Jesus, which was to infiltrate every nook and cranny of human existence, bringing life and beauty and joy. So we talked about characteristics of the original Jesus movement. And then last week and continuing today, we're making application. We're answering the so what question. Because we don't want to talk about it. We want to do it. We want to always be asking ourselves, what can we do to more fully align our lives with the Jesus movement? We're basically challenging ourselves to make spiritual ripples, splashes of change that will send out ever-widening circles of influence through our families, our church, our community, our culture, and our world. Ever-widening ripples of spiritual influence that can move down the corridor of time and actually change the history that will be written. Last week, we outlined 3 such ripples that we want to make. And today, we kind of pick up there, and we're going to outline the last 3. Here's really ripple number 4 that we're challenging ourselves to take. And that is we can change the way we look at next generation ministries. We can change the way we view our children's ministries. We can change the way we view our junior high and senior high ministries. I believe this is absolutely critical if we're going to line up with the spirit of the Jesus movement. You see, there are basically 4 ways we can view next generation ministry. One is the peripheral view. This looks at children's ministry and says, essentially, it's spiritual babysitting. Let's do something for the kiddos so that they aren't part of the adult service where the real action is happening. So we'll hire some or we'll recruit some volunteers to kind of babysit while the real work of God gets done in this room. That's the peripheral view of next generation ministries. And then there's what we could call the traditional view. The traditional view is all about indoctrination. It's all about saying, how can we get Christian facts into the heads of children and teenagers? The idea of catechism comes from this traditional view, that if we can just cram enough Bible knowledge in a kid's head, maybe, oh, just maybe, they'll be okay when they become adults. Then there's what we could call the contemporary view of next generation ministries. This is all about culturally relevant lifestyle education. It was kind of a response to the traditional view of looking at next generation ministries. And this said, man, our kids face a ton of pressure to do a lot of things that are really kind of unhealthy and destructive. And so let's, in a culturally relevant way, help them to understand a healthier way to live their lives.